Okay, Assalamualaikum and a very good day to Prof. My name is Farisha Binti Abdul and my metric number is 264331. So I will continue the presentation with the statement of problem. So for the statement of the problem, there are three main problems highlighted in this case. The first issue is issue arise in asset procurement process, including lobbying, corruption, and abuse of power. The second problem is the member of tender committee have been involved in bribery. And the third problem is, can Mr. Abu hide his wrongdoing from the report and the president of the company? Now, I will explain this issue one by one. The first issue is the issue of lobbying, corruption, and abuse of power. This issue arises when there is an audit finding from National Audit Department. There are some witnesses related to compliance with regulation and procurement planning that affect the interests of the government. So among the witnesses are the procurement did not comply with the appointment procedure. It shows that someone might have practiced of this activity misconduct. Next, the procurement did not go through the committee assessment. It is very important to go through the committee assessment before making a decision, because the procurement committee role is to ensure consistent and correct application of procurement practice. Other than that, they will issue on non-compliant with procurement specification, such as not following agreed schedule. So, for example, the company wants to order a model 1250 compactor, but end up receive the wrong model, which are model 1220. These are among the conditions that can lead to lobbying, corruption, and abuse of power. So this issue is a long-term problem, as it will give a negative impact on the company in the future if the company did not take any action in the early stage. So the second issue is member of tender committee have been involved in bribery. So Mr. Abu is the tender committee member, has committed fraud because of his pressure from his family, health, and also the financial problem. So Mr. Abu have pressure from financial problem because his wife, Mrs. Atika, being laid off from her job, and he is also responsible for his family and 5 siblings who stay in Kedah. Thus, this pressure will motivate a person to commit the crime in the first place. Apart from that, Mr. Abu greediness was lead him to commit fraud. For example, he has gained a BMW and iPhone 12 by Mr. Chow. So in return, he helps Mr. Chow company to be awarded with a tender to supply 15 units of compactor worth 3 million ringgit. Usually, a person dominated by greed will often ignore the harm of their action. So, Mr. Abu greediness has caused him to take the bribe without thinking about the impact on his company reputation. Okay, the last issue is, can Mr. Abu able to hide his wrongdoing? So after the Datuk Zainal tabled his audit finding of the procurement process, he direct all the head of department to write a report on the issue highlighted by National Audit Department. Thus, Mr. Abu also is not excluded from writing a report. So he may conceal all of his wrongdoing in the report and demonstrate that no evidence was exist to save himself. However, other employees may express their concern to Mr. Abu in the report, as several employees were aware that Mr. Abu had a suspicious relationship with Mr. Chow because he always had a gift from Mr. Chow and shared it with the staff. Thus, this is one of the evidence that other employee can express in the report. So, it is out of Mr. Abu's control to conceal all his wrongdoings.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and good morning everyone. My name is Najwa Binti Zailan Jefry. My metric number is 264404. Today I will present cause of problem part. For the first issue, the issue arises in asset procurement process, including lobbying, corruption, and abuse of power. In this case, there is two causes of this issue. Okay, the first causes of this issue, the desire to achieve the KPI targeted by the top management. Mr. Abu is eager to demonstrate to the top management that he can achieve the desired KPI while ensuring that the ABBA Municipal Council provided the best service. Thus, in order to achieve this objective, it has led to the weaknesses of regulatory compliance and procurement planning. The next causes is the greed. The greed of Mr. Abu has led him to take bribes from Mr. Cho in exchange of awarding Mr. Cho company with the tender project. It can be said that Mr. Abu will select the person to get the tender project based on his personal preference rather than following the appointed procedure. As a result, there is a problem in the regulatory compliance and procurement planning. The next issue is the issue member of tender committee have been involved in bribery. For this issue, there is two causes. The first causes is the financial problem and the second causes is the greed. The financial pressure has led Mr. Abu to commit the bribery. Okay, the financial pressure arises from the first, Mr. Abu's wife have been laid off from her job. Second, Mr. Abu has to support his family as he is the only breadwinner. At the same time, he has to support his sibling. The third is the high living costs. The fourth is the lavish lifestyle of Mr. Abu, where he owned a Volkswagen and drive a BMW. He lived in a bungalow house in Damansara, and he play golf regularly. The fifth is he take a loan from an authorized lender to sustain his lavish lifestyle. And the last one is he pay a lot of money to cure his illness. From overall of this, we can see as a result that the debt will keep mounting, and this will lead for Mr. Abu to take a bribe. Okay, the next is the greed. Okay, the greed of Mr. Abu has led him to take a bribe from Mr. Cho in the form of BMW and iPhone presented by Mr. Cho in exchange of assisting Mr. Cho to get the tender project. The last issue is, can Mr. Abu hide his wrongdoing from the report and the president of the company? Mr. Abu want to hide his wrongdoing, although he is guilty, because he is convinced that there is nobody know about his wrongdoing, and he is determined to prove that there is no evidence of his wrongdoing. Furthermore, he is concerned that if the company knows about his unethical behavior, a disciplinary action will be taken against him, and this will impact his job, whether he will lose his job or be suspended.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and hi, my name is Norsyuhada Binti Abdul Razak, metric number 264371. I will be presenting the decision criteria and alternative solution for the three problems stated in this case. I will explain the first alternative solution, while my other member will explain the second solution.
Hi everyone, my name is Iliya Syahirah Binti Sairuzi and my metric number is 264398. So I will explain about second alternative solution for each problem.
The first problem is regarding to the issues arises during the assets procurement process, including lobbying, corruption, and abuse of power. In this case, ABBA don't exactly know what kind of process that the tenders committee took to reach the final decision. There is high possibility that the tenders committee who were in charge for this competitive procurement to abuse their power and manipulate their decision to satisfy their personal interests. So, ABBA should investigate the procedures taken by the person in charge for making the decision of the compactors procurement. Close monitoring on the procedures taken to decide which tender to be chosen shall be conducted, because according to the Treasury Instruction PT 7.7 Vehicle Procurement, the person in charge shall conduct market research for each type of vehicle and consider the economic condition and implement it into the vehicle procurement process based on the actual needs of the council. Hence, close monitoring is important to ensure that all condition is fully complied with. As the condition and specification of the procurement is not complied, ABBA should conduct an inquiry or interview on the person in charge for the compactors procurement. They should be assessed with a set of questions to detect the actual procedures used for the compactors procurement. Therefore, ABBA could discover the actual procedures taken and evaluate whether the procedures comply with the conditions or framework for the procurement and proceed to interrogate the person in charge for it.
The second alternative for problem 1 is implementation of whistleblower system. Whistleblower system is an early warning system for detecting and combating misconduct made by Mr. Abu. Employees can anonymously report information regarding the relationship between Mr. Abu and Mr. Chow that they have noticed without fear of negative consequences. By this era of technology, the ABBA can implement online whistleblower system where the employees can easily report as anonymous by just using their phone and can stay connected with the investigator when they need critical information for an investigation. Implementation of whistleblower system have advantage and disadvantage. For the advantage, the first one is a whistleblower system providing a secure way for the company to report breach, misconduct or potential risk, help to detect and resolve wrongdoing at an early stage before any major damage is done. Second, whistleblower system offer the chance to create a transparent and value-based corporate and work culture. However, whistleblower system also give disadvantage to the company. The first one, the potential for reputational damage to the ABBA. Why? Because any kind of wrongdoing within the company will expose publicly and it will reflect badly on the company's image. Second, whistleblowing can also have financial impact in terms of costly court cases, fines imposed by the regulators, or compensation payouts.
Next, for the second issue, the members of tender committee have involved in bribery. The first alternative solution is to conduct a conversion search. Conversion search can be used to determine the extent of the embezzlement and to gather the evidence that can be used in interrogations. It is conducted by collecting data of income of a suspect. The income data can be collected from the government records, online database, net worth analysis, and through private sources information. As a result from this investigation, the suspect's income and the way he lived his life will show a significant difference between each other. In this case, if this conversion search is conducted on Mr. Abu, the person in charge for the compactor procurement, ABBA can detect the anomaly in his lavish lifestyle and his income. Given his tight financial condition, as his wife has been laid off and he need to bear the living costs of his family alone, it is quite suspicious on how he can still acquire a lot of luxury assets for himself.
The second alternative for problem 2 is query people through interview and honesty testing. First, interview. Okay, we need to interview the suspect and witnesses, which are Mr. Abu and staff in ABBA. And then we need to make them feel comfortable before go too deep into interview question so that they will tell everything about the fraudulent activities made by the suspect, where in this case is Mr. Abu is the suspect. And then ask question about the bribery and observe their reaction when answering the question, because people involved in misconduct or bribery have predictable reaction. For example, when we interview Mr. Abu, his reaction will deny toward his special interaction with Mr. Chow, where he got BMW Superbike, iPhone 12, and iPad Pro as a gift to help Mr. Chow's company awarded with the tender. Second is honesty testing. Okay, we can use pencil and paper honesty test. This test is a self-report that asks subject directly about the suspect's honesty, criminal history, and other general questions that show integrity, which in this case the suspect is Mr. Abu. So this method can be used as a tool to determine whether Mr. Abu has committed a crime or not. Or in other words, this method can provide evidence to prove Mr. Abu is a fraudster.
The third issue, can Mr. Abu hide his wrongdoings from the report and the president of the company? In this case, Mr. Abu don't want to admit his wrongdoing in his report, and he is convinced that there will be no evidence that can be found to prove his guilt. However, the fraud evidence can actually be obtained from concealment audit. Concealment audit is one of the methods in investigating fraud. This concealment audit is conducted to unveil the trace of evidence that is hidden from the perpetrator by obtaining documentary evidence. Documentary evidence can be obtained through computer-based queries of accounting and other databases, and other than that, it can also be obtained through traditional audit such as discovery sampling. By comparing the original and photocopied documents received from the tender contractors, they can detect whether the documents have been tampered or manipulated. Internal auditors can also conduct a test of mechanical accuracy, where the amount of the tender agreed by the government versus the value of compactor unit received is recalculated. So the amount differences will be investigated to track down the balance of the money received that is not recorded in the book. Through observation also, the management of ABBA can detect the changes in behavior of their staff. A person who tried to hide something will tend to look more nervous than normal.
The second alternative for problem 3 is detect symptoms of fraud by recognizing red flags. The internal control of ABBA management is weak where lack of segregation of duties. In this case, Mr. Abu is the only person who approved all the tender's documents. Hence, he is able to hide his wrongdoing from the report and president of the company. Second, logically, the lifestyle of Mr. Abu should change because he has financial problem, since his wife has been laid off from a job and he need to support his family and siblings. However, despite his financial difficulties, his lifestyle become more extravagant with BMW Superbike, iPhone 12, and iPad Pro from Mr. Chow. Next, tips and complaints from staff of ABBA can be one of the evidence that leads to fraud detection. Why? Because the staff are the one who receive order from Mr. Abu to record all the documentation. So there is a chance that they will expose his fraudulent actions. In line with that, the staff are also the witnesses when a group of contractors have brought cakes, fruits, and canned drinks to Mr. Abu's office, and Mr. Abu share with all his employees.
So first, I would like to thank to Shukry and Iliya And then I will continue the present for the recommended solution, implementation and justification. My name is Shukry Saad, and the number is 264 and 261. For the first problem, which is the issue arise during the asset procurement process, including lobbying, corruption, and abuse power, the recommended solution is the alternative number 2, which is implementing the whistleblower system. For the issue relating to the asset procurement process, the company needs to establish a whistleblower system as early prevention before anything happens. This system can help investigators investigate the issues relating to the asset procurement process, and it also can result on compliance of the procurement procedure, because if there are any issue happening in the asset procurement process, anyone can report to the system safety. Other than that, this system cannot be fully trusted. This is because people can sabotage other people and manipulate the information. So as a backup plan, all information needs to go through investigation to know if it's right or wrong. So this alternative can reduce opportunities and to allow fraud to happen by increasing the internal control in the company. Also, this can develop a mindset in the company that if they are commit fraud, they will be investigated and will be punished fairly. Okay, for the problem number 2, which is the member of tenders committee has been involved in the bribery. So the recommended solution is the alternative number 1, to conduct a conversion searches. To know if a member of the tenders committee has been involved in bribery, conversion searches need to be conducted. Conversion search generally function to detect if there is any suspicious income and investigate it where it comes from, which is the source of the income. So as a result, we can get to know which member of tender is involved in the bribery. But this alternative can arise a false accusation toward the member of the tenders. So for a contingency plan, the company needs to investigate first if there is any doubtful transaction that happened, such as unfair bidding for the tender. So this alternative can create a mindset that toward the member of the tenders committee that every transaction they make will be investigated, and they need to make sure that there is no suspicious transaction being made. So the member of the tender committee will be more integrity and responsible for their action. Lastly, for the problem number 3, which is was Mr. Abdul able to hide his wrongdoing from the report and the president of the company? So our recommended solution is alternative number 1, which is to obtain fraud evidence through the concealment audit. Due to the weak internal control and no segregation duties, Mr. Abu is able to hide his wrongdoing from the report and the president of the company. So to solve this issue, the internal auditor needs to make a concealment audit for every report to obtain the evidence. This method is more for a feedback or corrective action that must be made after the fraud happened, and it is hard to operate because it needs information from others to detect the fraudulent activities. So to overcome the setback of this method, the company needs to appoint an employee or supervisor to check and monitor every transaction, which will increase the segregation duty in the company. Also, the top management of the company needs to check and sign every report. Okay. So this alternative also can develop more internal control in the company, which will reduce people to commit fraud, because it will be hard for them to commit the fraud due to the concealment of it. Okay, that's all from me. Thank you.